follows an extract from my book Fête Fatale, available from Amazon. Chapter 10, Part 2. After some minutes' quiet consideration, agreement filtered through the mood of the group. "I don't see any objections. Nobody will be offended if we keep it under our hat," said Emma. "Just so long as you don't expect us to do anything illegal," said Henrietta. "Certainly not. I do think we need to manipulate circumstances to our purpose, though," said Beth. "It sounds like you already have an idea as to what those purposes are. It appears that we are now getting to the crux of the matter. Let's hear it, Beth," said May. "I've only thought as far ahead as our first list of operations. After that, we'll have to rely on intuition." Beth turned to Henrietta. "I know that you've been helping Jean clear out John's things, and I'm genuinely glad of that. I'm sure that she needs practical help and moral support just now, and there's no doubt that you're a more calm source of help than the well-meaning but slightly irritating Betty and Eileen." Here Beth cast a cautious glance around the tea rooms, checking that the lady in question wasn't within hearing distance. The last thing they needed was Eileen, on hearing her name, joining in their discussion. Seeing that the coast was clear, she continued, "If you could make yourself as available as possible and then be unobtrusively inquisitive. See if you can find anything which might encourage further scrutiny. If we all gather little snippets, who knows what sort of a picture we might find if we piece them all together. I did also wonder if Emma could be squeezed into the equation and could offer to come and lend a hand. Something along the lines of all those heavy bags to lift and high wardrobe shelves to clear and dust might do it. 2 heads are better than 1. Ordinarily that would be fine, but as it's school holidays, my hands are a bit tied with having Toby around. Emma has Toby for me once a week for my regular cleaning day there, but I don't think it would work with both of us there," said Henrietta. "Maybe you don't need to both be there at the same time, or if I'm around then I can have the children for both of you to go sometimes. The logistics can easily be organised if the main idea is agreed upon," said Beth. Emma and Henrietta looked at each other, and as no objections could be thought of, they both acknowledged the plan as fundamentally workable. "I can't imagine what you think we might find, but it won't hurt to take a look, and I'll pay more attention to what Jean says as she chatters while we work. I imagine that's the sort of thing you mean," said Henrietta. "Super, that's exactly the right idea. Just keep an open mind and be on the alert." "And what did you have in mind for me?" asked May. "Jean certainly won't want me tidying out her bathroom cabinet." "I think that Emma and Henrietta will have that angle covered. You and I need to take a slightly more official approach." "I thought you said that our success lay in being unofficial," said May. "Yes, from the policing perspective. I mean that we'll be official. Or you will, in your role of Secretary of the WI. Just before I left the house, Benji said that he needed to find out about a link with a man named Conrad Jefferson. He hopes to find out some business information that way. Drew has done some work for Jefferson in the past, and I recognised him as being at the fête with his wife. If you and I could call on Mrs. Jefferson, I think her name is Hyacinth, we could see if she's interested in joining our WI, and maybe get chatting to her generally. She's very shy. Conrad was sent to prison and she's naturally very embarrassed about it. Apart from digging for enlightenment, I genuinely think that she's lonely. I'd like it if she could join our little WI group. The fact that we might pick up some hints that Jefferson would never say to Benji are just a happy byproduct. Do you see what I mean? We can pick up bits of gossip as we go about our usual day-to-day stuff. If we are a bit more conniving about our usual routine, so much the better." Beth sat back pleased at finally unloading her plan and sharing her burden with her friends. "I'm not sure what we'll achieve, if in fact there even is anything tangible to achieve. But as the girls have said, there isn't really anything to lose," said May. "The worst case scenario is that it will all prove to be so much hot air, and the next time we meet here, I presume that this will be our official headquarters, we'll all just feel a bit silly. I can live with that." Benji is coming to the village today, and I don't want to get under his feet if he wants to talk to Jefferson himself. Can you spare an hour first thing Monday morning, May?" asked Beth. The newly formed alliance laid its plans and arranged to meet again over the next week or two, but sooner if anyone felt that they had anything to report. May then drove off towards home, and the remaining three went to rejoin the others at Beth's house. As they walked into the kitchen, it looked like a scene from the Mary Celeste. Scraps of pizza and tomato were strewn about the kitchen, but all was quiet and no one was to be seen. Opening the door to the lounge, they walked into almost complete darkness. The curtains were closed and bodies were strewn over the furniture and the floor. As predicted, a movie was well underway. Nathaniel was asleep after an early morning at the farm, and Primrose was also fast asleep in his lap. Almost in mirror image, Drew and Toby were also sleeping. Matt and Jonty were quietly positioned on cushions on the floor, their attention captured by the flickering screen. Benedict looked up on their arrival and waved a silent greeting. He stood up and followed his sister quietly into the kitchen. Emma and Henrietta joined in watching the film with the others. "Did you get any pizza, Benji, or are you hungry?" "I managed to fight for a few scraps. A coffee would be nice, though," said Benji. Beth made the drinks and placed them on the kitchen table along with a box of flapjacks that she'd made the other day. "It's a good thing that Lexi doesn't bake like you. I'd be the size of Jim's prize bull." Nevertheless, he took two. "Did you speak to Maddox? Did he find out anything helpful?" "I'm not sure that he learned much. I can't quite believe it, but there are hints that John was trying to turn con. Jefferson said that he told John not to be a fool. He also said that it was a bit extreme as his financial situation wasn't really all that bad. I gathered that he'd done pretty well for himself on the whole. I'll have to get Maddox to speak to his accountant and solicitor. I just wish that somebody would say something definite. What I really want to hear
book
is
of Fête Fatale, available in paperback or as an ebook, follow the link in the card in the description box, or find details on my website at sharonbill.com.
It's bad, but not that
Thanks
bad.
for listening.
I just don't understand it." Beth wondered if she ought to mention her conversation with Gareth at the Badger the other night. She decided against it, as Maddox would probably get more detailed information and could then form his own conclusion rather than being biased by hearsay. Peeping through the doorway to the lounge, Beth could see that the movie hadn't long to go. As Benji sat chatting about his own family news, Beth cleared away the remnants of lunch and began an off-the-cuff early tea. She wasn't sure how many would want to stay and eat, but didn't want to fracture the communal spirit by officially asking for numbers. Instead, it seemed more hospitable to set out an informal buffet, and then people could stay or leave as they preferred without awkwardness. She hoped that Henrietta would stay. It was good to see her settling into the gathering, and sharing an informal meal together would help Henrietta to integrate further into family friendship. This was much more relaxed than being officially invited to a meal. As Beth set a pan of fusilli to boil, she broached her concerns to her brother. "I'm sure that you've already thought of this, Benji, and I feel quite melodramatic saying this out loud. But do you think John may have committed suicide?" "Well done you," he said. "It was the very first thing I thought of, although it doesn't seem to have crossed anybody else's mind, and I'm glad about that. The last thing we need right now is a hue and cry. Under the guise of finding out if the stress of his business matters could have been sufficient to cause a heart attack, I'm also trying to get an idea of the state of John's mental health with that very thought in mind. There is one problem with that theory, however. I've looked through the photographs from when John was found dead, and there is so much general litter about, I'll never know if John had a drink to take stuff with. There may have been a discarded cup or something quickly thrown into one of the nearby bins, but I can't tell from the general mess. Never say never, though. The toxicology report will answer that question for us in the end. I've a sneaking suspicion that there's more to this case than meets the eye. I honestly thought that Jefferson was on the straight and narrow until this, and yet, what do I really imagine his role in this could be? He doesn't strike me as the type to get physical, and there's no evidence of that. Neither would he be a willing partner in crime to a relative stranger. Jefferson's weapon is his brain, and he only uses it for his own good as a rule. I'll just have to play the waiting game and do what I can until the forensics boys turn something or nothing up. I've only seen Conrad a couple of times, and then only for a brief time. From what I've heard Drew say, he is a really clever man. Drew said that he thought Conrad only played the financial system for a game. Not that that makes it right. He certainly doesn't need the money. Because he was clever, it was a sort of intellectual challenge, and Drew thinks that once he got caught, the game was over. He sees it as being bested more than being found out, and that puts an end to it. Drew has definitely got more commissions from him recently. I presume that meant he was now throwing all his energies into his legitimate business concerns. Who knows? It's going to be a long and tedious process, I do know that. As the pasta cooked, Beth chopped olives and parma ham. Then she made a basil and pine nut pesto, crushing the green leaves from a plant in the kitchen windowsill with a pestle and mortar and adding extra virgin olive oil. She sliced small paninis lengthways and spread a little of the pesto inside before adding the ham and fresh halves of vine tomato. Not owning a panini press didn't prove too much of an obstacle. Instead, Beth used a large George Foreman grill to quickly toast the filled paninis. She kept a steady feed going from the press to the oven to keep warm. Stirring in the rest of the pesto and tomato into the fusilli, she emptied the mix into a large bowl. The film ended and the party gradually came blinking back to life. Benedict and Beth carried the food into the dining area, and Beth added a side salad of vine tomatoes and lettuce leaves drizzled in olive oil and a little mint. Nobody seemed in a hurry to get away, and plates of food were soon balancing in hands and on chairs rather than a formal seating around the dining table. People ate and chatted, and the rule of allowing speech with a less than empty mouth evidently prevailed amongst the friends here too. Only as bedtime for the youngsters approached did the gathering break up, but once the group fragmented, even the older members decided it was time to begin the drive home. Jonty and Matt left together, and Benedict walked down the driveway to his own car with his nephews. Very soon Beth and Drew found themselves alone and left to face the mayhem left by the get-together. Drew assumed his natural role as expert dishwasher stacker, and Beth hauled out the Dyson to deal with the crumbs broadcast over the carpet, thinking how glad she was that she wouldn't be waking up to this mess tomorrow. For the full book of Fête Fatale, available in paperback or as an ebook, follow the link in the cards in the description box or find details on my website at sharonbill.com. Thanks for listening.